The hour of convening having arrived, all members of the House will please report to the floor and take seats. All members of the House will please report to the floor, and the clerk will ring the bell. Have all members reported to the floor? All members will report to the floor of the House. We are going to have the morning roll call. All members present will please vote green to signify their presence in the chamber, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. Doorkeepers will please close the doors and keep them closed. Well, good morning. I hope everyone has had a good weekend. I want to, before we have our devotion, make mention of a few items here, just to remind you that Chairman Lynn Smith's husband Charlie's memorial will be this afternoon out in Noonan. I know many of you had inquired about going. We're going to move through the agenda as quickly as we can. Ask you to continue to keep her in your prayers along with all of her family. I got word yesterday morning early that this is just one of those that just really breaks your heart. Representative Mickey Stevens' granddaughter passed away yesterday morning at the age of 17 with cancer. I talked to Mickey yesterday, and he's trying to be strong, but you can tell it's a pain like few people have to go through. So I'd ask you to keep Representative Mickey Stevens and his family in your prayers. Learned this morning that Chairman Gerald Green is hospitalized and is going to be having surgery this week down in Albany, and looks like he'll be at least a week out with us. So keep Chairman Green in your prayers. Good news is I think we're due to have Representative Holcomb back on Wednesday, so I always have to have a little bit of good news. We will begin our day with scripture reading and prayer by the chaplain, after which we will pledge allegiance to the flag of our country. Our chaplain this morning will be introduced by the gentleman from the 11th House District, Chairman Rick Jaspers. Chairman Jaspers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. You know, a number of us have more than one county that we represent, besides the one we grew up in or we've lived in for a long time. And in doing so, we find out about special people and those who work every day in their own community trying to make it better. Well, many years ago, I learned about Holly Creek Baptist Church. The energy they have and the commitment to the community outreach they do every day, and just what they do is a blessing to that community. Well, I'm glad to bring their pastor, Danny Cochran, as our pastor today. And members, you help me welcome some friends of his who brought him here today, and especially Mark Chapman. Mark, if you'll stand up, this pastor's special. He has a driver, and this is his driver. It drives him around all over everywhere. Let's give Mark a hand. Also, he has Joe Hogan, he's a member who is interested in politics, and so Representative Ridley and I are keeping an eye on you. We're glad you're with us today, too. And also, especially Linda Fowler. You know, in our world, you have people that recommend pastors of the day, and Linda, thank you for recommending him to me, to have him here today. We appreciate you. Thank you. You know, he's been at Holly Creek for 20 years. Now, in our Southern Baptist world, that's a long time. And I appreciate it. He's had the call to be a pastor since his early 20s. But I want to tell you something. Marcia and I went there yesterday, and when you face the pulpit at Holly Creek, there is a giant clear glass cross. And on the first service they have at 8:30, the sun shines in on a beautiful day and just illuminates the sanctuary. But all the rest of the time, you have the great view of the mountains in Murray County. But with yesterday, I want to tell you, he brings a strong, clear message about Jesus and salvation. And Marcia and I really enjoyed being with him yesterday. Now, we did find out a couple of hobbies. Of course, grandchildren, bike riding, and coon hunting. And, you know, it's a great Murray County sport. But Pastor Cochran, we welcome you to the House of Representatives.
Thank you, Speaker Ralston. Thank you, Representative Jaspers. It is indeed an honor for me to be here today. I want to thank you for the labor that you give to the state of Georgia and the people of this great state. While many of you have careers and you're working and taking time away from your family and other things to be here and do this work. And when I thought about you, I think about the fact that you are sometimes like pastors. You see, we live in the public eye. People scrutinize all that we do, and there's never a day when we please everyone. We make decisions, and when we make those decisions, we know that there will always be some who didn't agree with those decisions. And you voluntarily come into this pressured environment because you feel a call to do that and because you want to make a difference in the lives of others. I thank you for your service. And today I thought, what would I share that might be encouraging to you in light of what you do and the importance you play in our state? I thought of Joshua 1, verses 5 through 9. You know the story. Moses had died. Moses was that great hero in Israel. Don't know another arose in Israel quite like Moses, that great deliverer, that lawgiver. Moses had set out to lead the children of Israel into the land of Canaan, but he died not having accomplished that. And now Joshua, his understudy, is called to take his place. Those are big shoes to fill, and he's called to do what his hero was not able to accomplish. Imagine the pressure of leading 2 million people who were known for being rebellious from the wilderness to the land of Canaan. When Joshua was called, God said to him, "No man shall be able to stand before you all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will not leave you nor forsake you. Be strong and of good courage, for to this people you shall divide as an inheritance the land which I swore to their fathers to give them. Only be strong and very courageous, that you may observe to do according to the law, all the law which Moses my servant commanded you. You shall not turn from it to the right hand or to the left, that you may prosper wherever you go. This book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate in it day and night, that you may observe to do according to all that is written in it. For then you will make your way prosperous, and then you will have good success. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and of good courage. Do not be afraid. Do not be dismayed. For the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Joshua had an unimaginable challenge, but he also had an unbelievable opportunity. With great opportunities, there'll always be great challenges. He was called to step into that role. He was called to lead the people into the promised land. God gave him a promise and a command. God's promise was that he would be with him, that he would not forsake him. Sometimes being a leader in the public arena can be a very, very lonely role, because you're in the limelight and then you go home and you wonder, who can you trust, who's really going to support you? And sometimes being a public leader, as you are, can be a very lonely role to fill. Joshua would be lonely at times, and times he would be very unpopular, but he needed to remember he would never be alone, for the God who had placed him in that position would be with him. And then God's command to him was to be a person of courage. He says that you will observe to do all that is written in the law, and that would have been the Old Testament law of Moses. To do the law would be to do what's right. And sometimes to do the right thing takes courage. At least 3 times he tells Joshua to be courageous. And he says, be courageous to observe all that is written in the law. You see, it takes courage to do what's right when you know that your position will not be popular. It takes courage to do what's right when you know friends will disagree with you, and you wonder what will be the emotional cost from doing what's right. You, ladies and gentlemen, are called to evaluate very crucial issues that impact thousands and sometimes even millions of lives. And I know you labor over those in the night. You listen to your constituents, you listen to colleagues, you listen to others, but at the end of the day, you must do what you know in your heart is right. And to do that, you must be courageous. And to do that, we need to know that there's a God who will not forsake us, even if everyone else does. With that in mind, thinking of the importance of your work, thinking of the challenges and pressure you face, thinking of the late hours at night when you lie awake pondering, what should I do? How should I vote? I want to pray for you. Pray that God would give you wisdom and courage. Let's stand together. Heavenly Father, I come to you today in Jesus' name, thanking you for the ladies and gentlemen who stand before me. I thank you for the sacrifices they make to serve the people of our state. And Lord, I pray that you will let them know that their labor is not in vain. Remind them that they make a difference. And Lord, I pray that they will look to you for wisdom. They'll look to you for strength and courage. And Lord, when they know in their heart they've done the right thing, may they look to you for peace and contentment. Lord, it's my privilege today to lift the ladies and gentlemen of this body to you. I pray you'll give them everything they need to be the leaders we need in these crucial days. And I pray that in Jesus' name, amen. Would you turn with me?
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Doorkeepers will unlock the doors. The chair recognizes Chairman Hogan, the chair of the Committee on Information and Audits.
Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Information and Audits read the proceedings of the previous legislative day and found them to be correct.
Chairman Hogan, the chair of the Committee on Information and Audits, reports that the journal of the previous legislative day has been read and found to be correct. Is there any objection to the confirmation of the journal? The chair hears none, and the journal is confirmed. The clerk will read the resolution establishing the order of business for the day.
Mr. Burns, the 159th moves the following be established as the order of business during the first part of the period of unanimous consents. Introduction of bills and resolutions, first reading and reference of House bills and resolutions, second reading of bills and resolutions, reports of standing committees, first reading and reference of Senate bills and resolutions, morning orders.
Is there any objection to the adoption of the resolution establishing the order of business for the day? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. First reading of bills and resolutions. The clerk will read.
House Bill 987 by Representative Cooper, the 43rd, LaHood, the 175th, Jones, the 47th, Petrie, the 166th, Abstration, the 104th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Title 31 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to health.
Health and Human Services.
House Bill 988 by Representative Bentley, the 139th. Bill be titled an act to amend an act to create a Board of Elections and Registration for Macon County.
Intergovernmental Coordination.
House Bill 989 by Representative Parker, the 101st, Holland, the 54th, Hutchinson, the 107th, Moore, the 95th, Couch, the 50th, and others. The bill be titled an act to amend Article 7C of Chapter 4 of Title 49 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to therapy services for children.
Health and Human Services.
House Bill 990 by Representative Meeks, 178th, and Werkheiser, the 157th. The bill be titled an act to amend an act to provide for a new charter for the city of Scriven.
Intergovernmental Coordination.
House Bill 991 by Representative Hatchett, the 150th, Knight of the 130th, England of the 116th, Stevens of the 164th, Parrish of the 158th, and others. The bill be titled an act to amend Title 31 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to health.
Special Committee on Access to Quality Health Care.
House Bill 992 by Representative Scott of the 76th, Kendrick of the 93rd, Thomas of the 39th, Thomas of the 56th, and Jackson of the 64th. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 7 of Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to income taxes.
Ways and Means.
House Bill 993 by Representative Dempsey, the 13th, Welch of the 110th, Oliver of the 82nd, Cantrell of the 22nd, and England of the 116th. The bill being titled an act to amend Chapter 10 of Title 31 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to vital records.
Juvenile Justice.
House Bill 994 by Representative Reeves, the 34th, Fleming, the 121st, Abstration of the 104th, Welch of the 110th, and Earhart of the 36th. Bill be titled Act to revise provisions to advance the enforcement of laws and responses to certain criminal activities.
Judiciary non-civil.
House Bill 995 by Resident Bonner of the 72nd, Earhart of the 36th, Barr of the 103rd, Carpenter of the 4th, Momtahan of the 17th, and others. Bill be titled Act to amend Chapter 1 of Title 20 of the Fiscal Code of Georgia annotated relating to education generally.
Higher education.
House Bill 996 by Representative Cooper of the 43rd, Gaines of the 117th, Silcox of the 52nd, Hatchett of the 150th, and Newton of the 123rd. Bill be titled Act to amend Code Section 43, 34, 242 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to definitions relative to the Georgia Cosmetic Laser Services Act.
Regulated industries.
House Resolution 1237 by Representative Knight of the 130th, Rhodes of the 120th, Buckner of the 137th, Dubnik of the 29th, Smith of the 70th, and others. A resolution urging the Congress of the United States to pass the Recovering America Wildlife Act.
Game, fish, and parks.
House Resolution 1238 by Representative Tankersley of the 160th, Stevens of the 164th, Petrie of the 166th. A resolution recognizing Mrs. Blondine Newman and dedicating a road in her honor.
Transportation.
House Resolution 1239 by Representative Gaines of the 117th, Wiedauer of the 119th, Powell of the 32nd, Martin of the 49th, England of the 116th, and others. A resolution honoring the life of Mr. Dan McGill and dedicating an intersection in his memory.
Transportation.
House Resolution 1240 by Representative Cantrell of the 22nd, Burns of the 159th, Trammell of the 132nd, Gravely of the 67th, Caldwell of the 20th, and others. A resolution urging the federal government to allow states to switch to permanent daylight savings time.
Interstate cooperation.
Senate Bill 315 by Senator Tippins the 37th, Dugan of the 30th, Cowser of the 46th, Stones of the 23rd, Ligon of the 3rd, and others. The bill being titled an act to amend Part 3 of Article 8 of Chapter 14 to Title 44 of the Fiscal Code of Georgia annotated relating to mechanics and material men.
Regulated industries.
Senate Bill 322 by Senator Ginn of the 47th, Miller of the 49th, Oraca of the 36th, Williams of the 39th, and Tate of the 38th, and others. Bill be titled Act to amend Chapter 71 of the Title 36 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to development impact fees.
Governmental affairs.
That completes first readers.
Second reading of bills and resolutions. The clerk will read.
House Bill 962 by Representative Lumsden of the 12th, Powell of the 32nd, Jones of the 25th, Taylor of the 173rd, Bentley of the 139th. A bill relating to power, authority, and duty of Department of Administrative Services. House Bill 963 by Representative Gilliard of the 162nd, Bruce of the 61st. A bill relating to handicapped persons. House Bill 964 by Representative Mitchell of the 88th. A bill relating to holidays and observances. House Bill 965 by Representative Bazemore of the 63rd, Bruce of the 61st, Bodie of the 62nd, Metz of the 55th, Jackson of the 64th. A bill to amend an act to incorporate the city of South Fulton in Fulton County. House Bill 966 by Representative Burchett of the 176th, Corbett of the 174th, Burkle of the 155th, McCall of the 33rd, Ridley of the 6th, and others. A bill relating to forest resources and plant life. House Bill 967 by Representative Smith of the 133rd, Smith of the 134th, Smyre of the 135th, Hughley of the 136th, Buckner of the 137th. A bill to amend an act to establish the Municipal Court of Columbus, Georgia. House Bill 968 by Representative Estration of the 104th, Fleming of the 121st, Burns of the 159th, Williamson of the 115th, Hatchett of the 150th, and others. A bill relating to limitations on recovery for deficiencies connected with improvements to realty and resulting injuries. House Bill 969 by Representative Estration of the 104th. A bill relating to fair housing. House Bill 970 by Representative Smith of the 133rd, Smyre of the 135th, Rich of the 97th, Hatchett of the 150th, Buckner of the 137th, and others. A bill relating to imposition rate computation and exemptions from state income tax. House Bill 971 by Representative Gravely of the 67th, Reeves of the 34th, Jackson of the 128th, Holcomb of the 81st, Gullett of the 19th, and others. A bill relating to the Juvenile Code. House Bill 972 by Representative Houston of the 170th, England of the 116th, Knight of the 130th, Parsons of the 44th, Corbett of the 174th. A bill relating to miscellaneous offenses and penalties. House Bill 973 by Representative Paris of the 142nd, Beverly of the 143rd, Bennett of the 94th, Trammell of the 132nd, Smyre of the 135th, and others. A bill relating to public and legal holidays and leave of observance of religious holidays not specifically provided for. House Bill 974 by Representative Lumsden of the 12th, McCall of the 33rd, Watson of the 172nd, Perkle of the 155th, Jasper of the 11th, and others. A bill relating to property exempt from ad valorem taxes. House Bill 975 by Representative McCall of the 33rd and Powell of the 32nd, a bill to provide a homestead exemption from Madison County ad valorem taxes. House Bill 976 by Representative Tinkersley of the 160th, Burns of the 159th, Parrish of the 158th, a bill to create the Bullock County Public Facilities Authority. House Bill 977 by Representative Jones of the 91st, Davis of the 87th, Carter of the 92nd, Kendrick of the 93rd, Mitchell of the 88th, a bill relating to conditional discharge for possession of controlled substance as first offense in certain nonviolent property crimes, dismissal of charges, and restitution to victims. House Bill 978 by Representative Wynn of the 89th, Hughley of the 136th, Cannon of the 58th, Gardner of the 57th, Hutchinson of the 107th, and others, a bill relating to Disabled Adults and Elder Persons Protection Act. House Bill 979 by Representative Martin of the 49th, Jones of the 47th, Hatchett of the 150th, Silcox of the 52nd, Harrell of the 106th, a bill relating to ad valorem taxation of property. House Bill 980 by Representative Anulowicz of the 42nd, Stevens of the 164th, Walensky of the 79th, Henson of the 86th, Carpenter of the 4th, a bill relating to zoning procedures. House Bill 981 by Representative Mitchell of the 88th, a bill relating to crimes and offenses, education and health. House Bill 982 by Representative Jones of the 167th, Clark of the 98th, Morris of the 26th, a bill relating to continuances relative to civil practice and procedure and continuance relative to trial. House Bill 983 by Representative Williams of the 145th, Hitchens of the 161st, Powell of the 32nd, Lumsden of the 12th, a bill relating to the Sexual Offender Registration Review Board. House Bill 984 by Representative Burchett of the 176th, Fleming of the 121st, Bodie of the 62nd, Sains of the 180th, McLaurin of the 51st, and others, a bill relating to procedures for sentencing and imposition of punishment. House Bill 985 by Representative Irwin of the 28th, a bill to amend an act to provide a new charter for the city of Homer. House Bill 986 by Representative Jackson of the 64th, Bazemore of the 63rd, Bruce of the 61st, Bodie of the 62nd, Dreyer of the 59th, a bill relating to development authorities. House Resolution 1215 by Representative Gilliard of the 162nd, Hitchens of the 161st, Oliver of the 82nd, Gordon of the 163rd, Stevens of the 164th, and others. Resolution recognizing Judge Willie J. Lovett Jr., dedicating a building in his memory. House Resolution 1216 by Representative Gilliard of the 162nd, Hitchens of the 161st, Gordon of the 163rd, Stevens of the 164th, and Petrie of the 166th. A resolution recognizing Miss Betty Ann DePetrio Rapin, rededicating a road on the Georgia Ports Authority property in her honor. House Resolution 1217 by Representative Gilliard of the 162nd and Gordon of the 163rd, a resolution honoring Mr. Marvin Leon Curtis Jr. and dedicating a building in his memory. House Resolution 1218 by Representative Houston of the 170th, a resolution honoring the life of Mr. James Edward Giddens and dedicating a road in his memory. Senate Bill 134 by Senator Kirkpatrick of the 32nd, Jackson of the 2nd, Kirk of the 13th, Unterman of the 45th, Huffstetler of the 52nd, and others. A bill relating to the Georgia Commission on the Holocaust. House Senate Bill 268 by Senator Jackson of the 2nd, Harbison of the 15th. A bill relating to notary public. Senate Bill 335 by Senator Brass of the 28th, Miller of the 49th, Walker of the 3rd of the 20th, Ballas of the 53rd, Stone of the 23rd, and others. A bill relating to general provisions regarding parks, historic areas, memorials and recreation, juvenile code, and programs of protection for children and youth. Senate Bill 345 by Senator Kirkpatrick of the 32nd, Tippins of the 37th, Brett of the 33rd, Jordan of the 6th. A bill relating to standards, labeling, and adulteration of food. Senate Bill 356 by Senator Ligon Jr. of the 3rd, a bill relating to general provisions regarding solid waste management. Through second readers.
Reports of standing committees. The clerk will read.
Representative Rick Jaspers, the 11th District Chairman of the Committee on Education, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Education is under consideration the following bills of the House. Instructed me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendation. House Bill 1, do pass. Respectfully submitted, Representative Rick Jaspers of the 11th District Chairman. That completes the reading of the reports of standing committees.
Okay, we're going on now to morning orders. We're going on now to morning orders. Chair will ask members to limit their comments to 1 minute each, and the chair recognizes for a morning order Chairman Houston.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Jan Tankersley and I have been involved in Heartbound Ministries for several years, and starting today until Thursday at noon, Heartbound Ministries, Art on the Inside, is over at Sloppy Floyd. And this will give you a chance to see some of the talents that our inmates have across all of Georgia. And I think you'll be surprised at what they've taken with just the bare minimum and really turned into a work of art. And if you get a chance, please go over to Sloppy Floyd and buy you some art. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Al Williams and Representative Craig Gordon for a morning order. House will be in order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When tragedy strikes one in this house, it strikes us all. Representative Mickey Stevens' granddaughter, as the speaker mentioned earlier, died after a battle with cancer. And I know how long Mickey took her back and forth to the doctor and how close they were. So if we could just spend a minute of silence and pray for that family, if we would. Amen.
Chair recognizes Chairman Randy Nix for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Smith and Representative Trammell and I want to recognize a very special group here this morning, the LaGrange Youth Council. These are some of the up-and-coming leaders, if you'll stand, from LaGrange and Troup County. I've had the chance to meet with them, and they're an outstanding group. And I'd also like to recognize Katie Van Shore, who works with them, and also Meg Kelsey, who is the city manager for LaGrange. So would y'all please welcome them to the House this morning. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Representative Derek Jackson for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colin Powell, if you look at the screen, he was a young man then, 50. My moment of black history is Colin Powell, as an American politician and a retired four-star general from the United States Army. During his military career, Powell served as a national security advisor. He was the youngest. He was at the age of 50. He also was the commander of the United States Army Forces Command. He was also the youngest chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff. He was 52 when he became JCS, holding a latter position during the Persian Gulf War in 1993, the same Gulf War I participated in. Powell was the youngest and the first, and so far the only African American to serve as the JCS. He was also the 65th United States Secretary of State, serving under the United States President George W. Bush from 2001 to 2005. This is my moment of black history. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Representative Doreen Carter for a morning order.
Thank you, Speaker Ralston. Georgia's maternity rate is alarming for black women, who have a rate of 66.6% per 100,000 live births compared to 43.2 for white women, and for women between the ages of 35 and 44 with a rate of nearly 90 deaths per 100,000 live births. The high U.S. maternal mortality rate is often attributed to limited access to health care, poverty, and untreated chronic conditions such as hypertension, obesity, and diabetes. Warnings for new moms. Here's when you should call your doctor. If you have a headache that does not get better even though you have taken medicine, bleeding that soaks through a pad every hour or two, and large blood clots, red or swollen legs that is painful or warm to touch, a temperature over 100, problems urinating, inability to urinate. Call 911 if you have chest pains, shortness of breath, or trouble breathing that is not controlled, sudden onset of arm or leg weaknesses. Now, here's the problem. A woman who is not covered by insurance will be hesitant to either make the call or go to the doctor. Expand Medicaid, especially for new mothers. Thank you, Speaker Ralston. I yield the well.
Chair recognizes Representative Dickerson for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This morning I would like to recognize Forrest Sawyer, who was a constituent of mine in Newton County. This week, Mr. Sawyer passed, and he was a great man. He was a civil rights activist. He was part of the Newton Six. So if you all would just stand for a moment of silence, I would like to recognize him and the things that he did in Newton County and in the rest of this country. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Representative Hutchinson for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, colleagues. Today, I'd like to introduce you to 10-year-old Blaze. Blaze is a sweet boy who enjoys playing on the computer, playing video games, and watching shows with action and adventure. He needs a loving adoptive family who will provide him with the attention, support, encouragement, structure, and the nurturing environment that he needs to continue to thrive. Blaze's family will also need to support his desire to maintain his relationships with his siblings who have been planned for separately. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Blaze, who is one of hundreds of children available today for adoption in Georgia. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Representative Sam Park for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, colleagues. Today is Asian American Lobby Day at the state capitol. The Asian American and Pacific Islander community is the fastest growing population in the United States, and Georgia is fortunate to be home to more than 455,000 residents of Asian American descent. The history of Asian Americans is quintessentially an American story. As hardworking immigrants in a new country, Asian American communities have strengthened our democracy, enriched our history, and made significant economic, cultural, and political contributions to our nation. With us this morning are leaders from across the Asian American and Pacific Islander community whose work demonstrates that a diverse Georgia is a strong Georgia. Their hard work and sacrifice have paved the way for people like me and provided future generations every opportunity to thrive. Please rise and welcome them to the People's House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
the House will come to order. We have some invite resolutions, and the first one is special to this House. Ask Dean Smyrie if he would to join me at the podium. And I'd ask the clerk to read the text of House Resolution 1153.
House Resolution 1153 by Representative Ralston of the 7th, Smyrie of the 135th, Jones of the 47th, Burns of the 159th, Trammell of the 132nd, and others. A resolution honoring the life and memory of Robert Robbie E. Rivers, Jr., and for other purposes. Whereas the state of Georgia mourns the loss of one of its most distinguished citizens with the passing of Robert Robbie E. Rivers, Jr. on August 27, 2019. And whereas Robert E. Rivers, Jr. was born May 28, 1951 in Atlanta, Georgia, a beloved son of the late Robert and Barbara Rivers. Whereas Robbie was married to the late Kathy Williams Rivers and then to Joy Corson Rivers, and was blessed with a remarkable son, Robert Rivers III, and 3 wonderful grandchildren, Elizabeth, Kathleen, and Bobby. And whereas he gave inspiration to many through his high ideals, morals, and deep concern for his fellow citizens, and the devotion, patience, and understanding he demonstrated to his family and friends were admired by others. And whereas he earned a bachelor's degree in political science with honors from the University of Georgia and a Juris Doctor degree from Emory University School of Law. And whereas Robbie entered public service as an assistant district attorney for the Coweta Judicial Circuit and went on to be a legal assistant for the Speaker's Office of the Georgia House of Representatives, acting clerk for the Georgia House of Representatives, and clerk for the Georgia House of Representatives from 1992 to 2013. And whereas he was a person of magnanimous strength with an unimpeachable reputation for integrity, intelligence, fairness, and kindness, and by the example he made of his life, he made this world a better place in which to live. And whereas a compassionate and generous man, Robbie will be remembered for his love of family, friendship, and community, and will be missed by all who had the great fortune of knowing him. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the House of Representatives that the members of this body join in honoring the life and memory of Robert Robbie E. Rivers, Jr., and express their deepest and most sincere regret at his passing.
I am joined up here at the podium today by not only Dean Calvin Smyrie, but by Robert Rivers, Robbie's son, his sister Stephanie Cordolino and her husband Gary, and Robert's wife Michelle, who was Robbie's daughter-in-law. Many of you, if you came here after, I guess in the 2014 cycle or later, you missed getting to know and serving with Robbie Rivers. Those of us who had that good fortune were indeed blessed. My friendship with Robbie dates back to 2003 when I first got to know him. I found out early on that friendship with Robbie took one of two forms. You were all in, or you just probably weren't his friend. But Robbie, he really, we've heard it said many times about many people, but I don't know of anyone who embodied it more than Robbie Rivers. He loved this house. He loved this house. And session for him started about a month before we convened, and it went through Saturday and Sunday, and I don't think he ever took a day off during the session, including a weekend day. He was happy one night to have Sonny Dye get here, as y'all can tell. But He was a loyal friend, and I speak for others that have held the position that I'm honored to hold today. You can't do this job without a person like Robbie Rivers. And so I was, he was a dear, dear friend, and I miss him very much. He retired in the summer of 2013, and we had a typical Robbie retirement party. Tomato sandwiches, and because he and I shared a love of those in the summertime. Lots of mayo, lots of salt, no healthy bread, white bread. And that was the way we liked our tomato sandwiches. But we lost a real friend of this body last August, and a fellow who touched many, many lives of people who came through these halls in this chamber. One who I love dearly. I'm going to ask now that the Dean of the House, who served with Robbie for many years, Dean Smyrie, speak to the resolution.
Mr. Speaker and ladies and gentlemen of the House, I was deeply honored when I got the call to speak at Robbie's homegoing service, funeral services in Bremen. And when I called Robbie, when I called his son and to talk with him, I told him I was going to tell half of the story. But Robbie Rivers brought so much calm to this place. He really did. In fact, the picture's not up there, but the one that the tomato sandwiches were served at, Robbie was on a chair, and Speaker Ralston was holding him up while he was speaking in the chair, and we never thought that he would get through it, because you know how Robbie is when he moves when he talks, those of y'all who knows him. But he had a calming voice, and he was a very, very steady. He brought a lot of order to the house, and he just was a wonderful, wonderful person. I remember, in fact, the speaker spoke to this, but I think there are 5 members in the House now that were here when Robbie was an acting clerk and became clerk in '91 and became clerk in '92 and served for 22 years. But 92 of y'all have served with him. There's 92 members here from 2013 on. And I'm just, when the Speaker called me on Friday to ask me to say a word, I'm honored to stand here today to pay tribute to a giant of a person. He was small in size, but he was big in heart. And but Robbie Rivers gave 28 years to this state, 22 as clerk of the House. And when I got to Bremen, I thought about the fact that his contributions to the state are duly noted in the resolution. And I thank Speaker Ralston and the members of this House for honoring him and giving him this recognition. He served under 4 speakers, 2 Democratic, 2 Republican. And one of the best things that Speaker Ralston did was to retain Robbie Rivers as clerk. So I'm happy to be here this morning just to say a word or two about a dear friend and a public servant, one who gave quite a bit all the time to make this House what it is today. So thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Robert Rivers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and the ladies and gentlemen of the Georgia House of Representatives, and particularly to the staff that support you, particularly the clerk's office. My family and I want to thank each and every one of you for the support that you showed Robbie during his 27 years here at the Georgia House of Representatives. As most of you know, my dad suffered a stroke on Sunday evening, August 25th, and then passed away that following Tuesday, August 27th. We appreciate, my family and I, appreciate so much the demonstration of kindness from so many of you, particularly you, Mr. Speaker. You were right there with me when I called you and with us that week, but thanks to so many of you. I know that you and Robbie, Mr. Speaker, were friends, and your relationship meant a lot to him. Since my father first arrived here in 1986 as legal aid to Speaker Murphy, Robbie served everyone. And yes, 1986, those were the days when all of the Republicans sat in the back rows of the chamber, Mr. Speaker. And yet, he treated everyone with respect, regardless of party affiliation or sex or race or ethnicity, for that matter. I was recently asked in a different setting, I was asked what I would like for my legacy to be. And I simply described, in response to the question, Robbie's funeral. Mr. Calvin Smyrie spoke, as did Judge Michael Murphy, retired judge out in Haralson County, Tom Murphy's son. Serving as pallbearers included you, Mr. Speaker, Secretary Sonny Perdue, along with the town barber and Robbie's best friend, who had his physics degree from Georgia Tech, but had earned his living as a lumberjack. That's the sort of legacy that I responded to the question that I would like to leave, perhaps, and I think maybe we all should learn a little bit from Robbie there. Bringing people together in a way that only Robbie could do. And as I said, that was expressed so well at his funeral. My father was a student of the law and of Georgia history and of politics. His wisdom sometimes expressed in quirky ways, but he served this great state and loved this house so very, very much. So again, my Aunt Stephanie, Robbie's sister, her husband Gary, and my wife Michelle, and all of us, I just want to thank you again, and I can assure you that you all supported Robbie as much as he tried to support you all. So we're very indebted to you all, and thank you very much. Oh, yes. Resolution. Right, that's wonderful. Thank you. We do appreciate it so much. I mean every word I said.
Let's get a group picture here.
Okay.
Clerk will read the caption to House Resolution 1193.
House Resolution 1193 by Representative Dollar of the 45th, Stevens of the 164th, Bonner of the 72nd, Rogers of the 10th, and Fry of the 118th. A resolution recognizing and commending the Georgia Studio and Infrastructure Alliance as a representative for the tens of thousands of hardworking citizens in the state of Georgia's film and television industry, and for other purposes.
Chair recognizes Chairman Dollar for an invite resolution.
Thank you, Speaker. Today we have, again, the Georgia Studio and Infrastructure Alliance. On every one of your desks, there is a book, and I would strongly encourage you to look at it, because it is the direct result of things that we have done here. These are folks who do not benefit directly, or do not directly benefit from the credit that we pass, but it tremendously impacts every one of their jobs and every one of the investment that is made here in the state. I would encourage you, again, to look at it, to go back to your districts to see what this has done in your communities. And with that, I want to hand it off to Beth Talbert. Beth is the VP of Studio Operations at Eagle Rock Studios. So Beth, come on up.
Just a moment. We are recognizing some very distinguished Georgians. Chair is going to ask you that if you are within the chamber, that you take your seats and cease conversation. Lady may proceed. Sometimes you have to discipline.
Chairman Dollar, Mr. Speaker, and House members, thank you so much for having us here today. 3 years ago, the Georgia Studio and Infrastructure Alliance started collecting stories about people who live and work in the entertainment industry in all four corners of the state. We started posting them online on our website, and about 2 years ago, someone said, we should publish this. And we kept kind of talking about it, and finally last fall we went, now's the time, let's do it. So thanks to a great group of sponsors here in the state of Georgia, we were able to put this together in 4 short months and have it here for you today. And we're just thrilled about all these stories. We've collected over 100. We now have about 65 here in the book. You know, there's so many other states in the country now that are so envious of the entertainment program and the program that's been happening here in Georgia that they're trying to copy us. And we just want to thank every one of you in this room for supporting this industry. We've got tens of thousands of people in this state that live and work in this industry. They raise their families here, and we just want to continue that. And we just want to thank you for your support. Thank you.
Clerk will read the caption to House Resolution 1027.
House Resolution 1027 by Representative Gamble of the 15th, Ralston the 7th, Smyre the 135th, Scoggins the 14th, and Kelly the 16th. A resolution recognizing and commending Georgia Supreme Court Justice Robert Benham upon the grand occasion of his retirement and for other purposes.
Chair recognizes Representative Gamble for an invite resolution.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker and members of the House. I'm honored to stand before you this morning to recognize one of Cartersville, Georgia's favorite sons, Justice Robert Benham, and he's joined here today with his wife, Miss Nell. We are also honored to be joined by Court of Appeals Judge Christian Coomer, who is with us, our Bartow County Legislative Delegation, and others from this House who have also worked with Justice Benham through the years. Justice Benham is currently the longest-serving member of the Georgia Supreme Court. In 1984, he became the first African-American in Georgia to be appointed to the Court of Appeals by another favorite son of Cartersville, Governor Joe Frank Harris. Justice Benham went on to win statewide election that same year. Last May, Jim Galloway with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution did a wonderful job highlighting that 1984 election. The historic election and all that encompassed it was truly remarkable. Later in 1989, Governor Harris appointed Justice Benham to the Supreme Court, where he became the first African American to serve there as well. Now, I could stand up here and say many things about this great man. And on Saturday, I asked Joe Frank if he had any thoughts about your long and distinguished career. And he was very gracious in his comments, and he wanted you to know how much he appreciated all that you've done, and most importantly, that you never let him down during his tenure, or even for that matter to this day. Dean Smyre said the same thing about you. On many occasions on my way home, I drive by Justice Benham's house, and inevitably I'll see him working in his yard or cutting his grass. I've always been told not to trust a man that doesn't cut his own grass, and Justice Benham, I cut my grass too, and that's something I enjoy as well. You've served our state well, and your hometown and the citizens of Georgia thank you for many years of dedicated service that you have given. You're truly a bridge builder and someone that we can all look to as an example in public service. And I pray that God would continue to bless you in the days that are ahead as you enjoy your retirement.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I appreciate this resolution and this honor. This is not my first time coming here. I actually came here over 50 years ago. I was one of the governor's early interns, and I had an opportunity to come and be introduced here. This time, out of abundance of caution, to make sure I was well received, I brought my wife with me. I understood that I was not her first choice, but I have worked to earn my keep. I want to thank you for the service that you perform, because public service is a high calling. It's not for the weak, it's not for the timid, it's not for the irresolute. It's for those who are determined to do the right thing. And I want to leave you with the words my dad gave me when I was 6 years old, when he took my two brothers and me and called us in and said, "I want to talk with you boys." Now, you know what I thought he was going to talk about, but he didn't talk about that at all. He said, "This is what it takes to live in this family. You serve your God, you sacrifice for your family, you perform public service, and if called upon, lay down your life for your country." That's all he had to say. Thank you very much.
Chair recognizes Representative Oliver to introduce the Doctor of the Day.
You're getting to be here as much as Mike Cohn is. And Ellington.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm very pleased to introduce to you Dr. Daniel Lopez today. He has served us both in urban and rural Georgia, and he's working very hard on a number of leadership positions for access to health care. Thank you, Dr. Lopez, for joining us today.
Mr. Speaker, thank you, Representative Oliver, for your warm welcome. It's an honor to be here, part of this great tradition, and serve as a Doctor of the Day. Also, it's a privilege to serve the people of Georgia as part of the Southeast Permanente Medica Group. Many of you may not be familiar, but we are the largest physician-led, physician-owned medical group in Georgia. And I and 800 of my colleagues take pride in major medical decisions with you, not with the insurance company. We also are very proud to provide care of 300,000 Georgians. For them, 40,000 at State of Georgia employee and their dependents, and very honored to also provide care to 2,000 retirees, or military retirees and their families. I'm a family medicine by training, and I work together with 42 other specialties in my company in the Southeastern Permanente Medica Group to provide great care. Again, thank you for what you do. Thank you for allowing doctors like us to do what we love and be well and thrive. Thanks.
Let's get a picture right here.
We are going on to the rules calendar. We are going on to the rules calendar. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 820.
House Bill 820 by Representative Tanner of the 9th, Smiley 135th, Carpenter, McCall of the 33rd, and others, being entitled an act to amend Article 3 of Chapter 2 of Title 32, the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to officers in the Department of Transportation, so as to provide for state investment in railways and railroad facilities and equipment. This bill having referred to the Committee on Transportation, that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Chairman Tanner to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 820 comes to you as a recommendation from the Joint Freight Logistics Commission with the Georgia Senate. The Speaker appointed that commission along with the Lieutenant Governor a year ago. We met throughout the summer and fall, taking a look at our freight and the need to move additional freight through Georgia. House Bill 820 is needed in order to take Georgia to the next step in creating a true transportation network, largely because of the increase in the Port of Savannah, which is one of the fastest growing ports in our country. It's estimated that the amount of freight coming in and through Georgia is going to double by 2040. This is already on an overcrowded infrastructure network in our highway system. HB 820 allows us to take the next step necessary to move goods coming in and out of the port in a more efficient way. In 2015, GDOT published a state rail plan, which is the state's most recent. It sets forth a detailed list of short-range and long-range projects as it relates to rail. They're currently in the process of updating that plan now. One of the things that we have clearly seen over the last several years is we have a shortfall in the amount of investment in rail infrastructure in our state. The state of Georgia owns several hundred miles of rail infrastructure that it's responsible for, and through the state rail investment plan, it outlines where we're falling short and how much money needs to be spent to update that infrastructure. And again, there's just not enough dollars in the budget to be able to accomplish that. The program before you will basically be administered by GDOT. There's no money tied to this program. It will program a line item in the GDOT budget which will allow us to track rail infrastructure. It will give an opportunity for the appropriators in this House and Senate to appropriate dollars into rail infrastructure if they deem that necessary or fitting in future budget years. It in no ways messes or has any effect on current House Bill 170 funding or any other dollars in the state budget. GDOT would be directed to set rules that are consistent with the state constitution and laws, which includes not violating the gratuities clause of the state constitution, which deals with investing in private companies for a non-public use. So that's clearly stated in the legislation. Again, no dollars are tied to this. It's a result of the Joint Freight and Logistics Commission. It sets up a programmed item in the Georgia Department of Transportation annual budget to track rail infrastructure. I appreciate the fellow members of the Freight Logistics Commission that worked with us on this over the last year, and we look forward to continuing that work throughout the summer and fall this year. Mr. Speaker, with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
You have no questions. Oh, you do have a question.
I yield.
Chair recognizes the Majority Leader of the House to your right for a question.
The gentleman yield.
Yes, sir, I yield.
Mr. Chairman, is it not true that you've worked diligently on these issues for a number of years?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And is it further not true that with the unprecedented growth in our ports and the projected growth in our ports, that this is vitally important to all Georgians as we look to move safely around this state and make sure we continue to be the best place in the nation to live, work, and raise a family?
Yes, sir, and I know the area that you represent very well in your part of the state feels this growth in freight. Only 27% of the current freight moves by rail. Anything we can do to increase that number will take traffic off of our roadways, so thank you.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for your efforts. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, with that, I yield the well and ask for favorable consideration for House Bill 820. Thank you.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of House Bill 820. The ayes are 162, the nays are 1. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 417.
House Bill 417 by Representative Powell of the 32nd, Hitchens, the 161st, Clark of the 147th, Williams of the 145th. Be titled an act to amend Title 35 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to law enforcement officers and agencies so as to provide for the comprehensive regulation of trauma scene cleanup services. This bill having referred to the Committee on Public Safety and Homeland Security. That committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chair recognizes Chairman Alan Powell to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to bring this bill to y'all hopefully for the last time. This bill's already passed through this body twice. One is a House bill, and secondly, it passed as a Senate bill. This is the crime scene trauma cleanup bill. I got involved in this issue back in my tour of duty of working as on public safety chair a few years ago. And we realized at that time that we had somewhat of a problem in the state that we had people who were offering their services as an expert in trauma scene cleanup. And that's probably not the most pleasant topic you want to discuss right before lunch. But this is where people have to clean up what happens in daily lives of a crime scene or a suicide or just a case where somebody might just accidentally go to sleep and nobody checked on them and their remains have to be cleaned up. What brought this to our attention was that we had several cases that were brought out to us. We had a couple of coroners because of the impact on this type of and on subjects of this nature. People usually vacate the premise and let somebody clean it up. Well, we had a couple of cases. We had a couple of coroners who were indicted for basically stealing people's goods, and that's how it started. And then we realized there was a little bit more to it. And the little bit more to it was that we had testimony that some of these companies that folks had hired and reached out to, they'd come in, they'd clean up, but there was nothing certain about what they did with the remains. Yeah, some of them might go to the funeral home, but quite frankly, there were some cases that body parts wound up being in trash dumpsters, or they wound up being swept into the garage and things like that. And quite honestly, we decided then that there was some things else that needed to be done. Now, this isn't a licensing bill per se, it's a registration act. Now, I will tell you why it's back here today. We passed this bill out of the House and the Senate last year, and the governor vetoed this bill. And the governor vetoed it under the rationale that it had not gone through the GORP committee. That's the Georgia Occupational Oversight. So we bounced back and we went through the GORP committee. Last year, these folks would have had to been registered with the GBI. So there was two changes made. One would be that these practitioners, that they would have to be certified by EPD for the transport of biomass, or that's the stuff, the carcinogenic type stuff, and just basically the flesh and the blood and stuff like that. And secondly, they would be registered. Another change was that now, thanks to the governor, and I'm very appreciative that he's expedited away, that the Secretary of State's office has said that they will be the license or the registering agents for this. So for your benefit, I'm going to quickly go through the bill and just to rehash your memory, not particularly on the gory details, but they would be registered with the Secretary of State's office. There'd be a 3-year registration of $100, which is about half the amount of what a registering LLC would be. That individual that is registered couldn't be a felon. They had to be fingerprinted and have a clean criminal record. Let's see. They'd have to be able to stand for a $25,000 surety bond, just to be sure that they are doing what they say. They'd have to have a liability policy of $100,000 in the case of what they're doing around these people's homes. As I spoke earlier, they'd have to be registered and have a permit from EPD for the generation and transportation of these types of materials. These individuals, the companies, they'd have to give a good faith estimate when somebody's needing this type of services for a cleanup. They'd have to give them an estimate of it before time. And then last but not least, the question always comes up, well, what if somebody wants to clean up their own situation? Well, yes, they can do that. They can seek the help of friends, family, church members, neighbors, or anybody else. And they can do that, and they can make a gratuitous contribution to the same. So basically, it's for anyone who bills themselves out as a crime scene drama specialist. Mr. Speaker, I'll be more than glad to answer any questions. And if not, I would appreciate the support of this House again.
You have several questions if you yield.
Yes, sir. I'll be glad to.
Chair recognizes Representative Bentley to your left for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, can you explain to me exactly how this bill is going to impact the funeral industry? I know you mentioned that we've gone through this legislation before, but there's these changes that have been presented as of recent. Exactly how it is going to impact the funeral industry?
I don't think it's going to impact the funeral industry unless you want to get out of the business of helping clean up walls inside of a house after a tragic event. It has nothing to do with the funeral industry.
Further question?
Certainly.
You mentioned transporting in this legislation, because there are times that we have to transport remains from one location to the next. This legislation is not going to impact the transportation part of the funeral industry, am I correct?
The only transportation that this means is the transportation of brains and flesh and biomass, or that type of stuff.
Okay. All righty, thank you.
You're more than welcome. Be careful what you ask me, you're going to get an answer.
Do you further yield?
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes Representative Williams, Al Williams, to your left for a question.
Certainly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
Are you absolutely certain, sir, that this will be the last time we have the opportunity to hear about the very pleasant details of your bill if we pass it?
I only hope this is the last time that you hear, unless they make changes in the Senate, and that would be an agree-disagree.
I must say, you hashed it out quite well.
Thank you so much to my dear friend from the coast.
Chair recognizes, you did yield for more.
I'd be glad to, but I think it's pretty well self-explanatory. I'll yield for one more question, Mr.
Chair
Speaker.
recognizes Representative Vernon Jones to your left for a question.
Yes, sir.
Will the gentleman from the Great Solomon of Hartwell yield, please?
I certainly will.
Is it not true that I have experience in commanding a large police department and a medical examiner and have the experience and know a little bit about crime scenes?
Yes, sir, if the gentleman so states.
Isn't it further true that when there is a crime, it is horrific, and family members and individuals who are affected by that many times are not at their homes or at that location? They're vulnerable, and people can come in and do these cleanups without any type of at least limited type of registration or regulation, and that this would bring some sort of limited regulation as to who and how they clean up these crime scenes?
Yes, sir, the gentleman is exactly right, because if you are unfortunate enough to suffer through one of these type of events on your properties, you want it cleaned up, but that's something we don't think about. And you want to be sure that not only is the rest of the possessions in safe and a secure method not to be pilfered through, but you want to be sure that those remains are processed and humanely put to rest.
Yes, and would the gentleman yield for just one more?
Yes, sir.
And finally, isn't it also true that when you look at the cost and the charges to those who are involved, the outrageous costs, and you don't know, they don't have any background or anything, that this is a good consumer protection bill as well as a limited regulation bill?
Amen. Thank you, brother. Mr. Speaker, I think these...
You yield the will?
I'm going to yield the will because I think we've about talked this one to death, and I'd appreciate your support.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of House Bill 417 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. What purpose does Representative Cannon rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that this bill does nothing to limit the responsibility of a citizen to help maybe someone who's struck by a vehicle, a pedestrian, or a cyclist?
I think that question would better be addressed to the author of the bill. He might choose to answer it in the form of a parliamentary inquiry or not. All those in favor of the bill are voting aye. Those opposed are voting no. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of House Bill 147. The ayes are 147, the nays are 19. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 583.
House Bill 583 by Representative Williams, the 148th and Gamble of the 15th, to be entitled an act to amend Title 33 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to insurance so as to provide a framework for regulating the offering or issuance of travel insurance in this state. This bill having referred to the Committee on Insurance, that committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chair recognizes Representative Noel Williams to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning, or colleagues. I come to you today to discuss a few points of House Bill 583, a travel insurance bill. It's created for a more level playing field and provide more uniform regulations throughout the states. It codifies, more importantly, consumer protections so that these plans are fair and reasonable. This exact legislation has been adopted by 6 other states and anticipate a large number more by the end of 2020. We worked with the insurance department and it passed out of the House Insurance. And with that, I ask for your favorable vote on House Bill 583.
You have a couple of questions if you care to yield.
Yes, sir, I will yield.
Chair recognizes Representative Chokus to your left for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
I yield.
All right. My question is this, because I live in a neighboring county and this travel insurance, I'm curious, will we be required to have passports to go from Sumter County to Crisp County?
Well, you know, we do have a bridge from Crisp to Sumter, and we don't let just anybody come across that bridge.
Gotcha. Will you further yield?
I will.
Is this your first bill, sir?
No, sir. But thank you for asking.
Chair recognizes Representative Cannon to your left for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Do you yield?
I do.
Thank you. In committee, I know that there was discussion about how this bill affects all residents of the state of Georgia, whether
Correct.
they're citizens or undocumented or not. Can you speak to that level of this bill?
Well, as we stated in the committee meeting, whoever purchases the travel insurance, once they pay the premium for that travel insurance, then that person will be covered. Thank you for the question.
No further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the will.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of House Bill 583 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of House Bill 583. The ayes are 157, the nays are 10. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to a group of privileged resolutions.
Recognizing and commending Juliana Arms on the Girl Scout Gold Award, Girl Scouts' highest honor. Recognizing and commending Gabrielle Patterson on the Girl Scout Gold Award, Girl Scouts' highest honor. Recognizing and commending Juliana Moya on the Girl Scouts Gold Award, Girl Scouts' highest honor. Recognizing and commending Sia Calra on the Girl Scouts Gold Award, Girl Scouts' highest honor. Recognizing and commending Joshleen Cower on the Girl Scouts Gold Award, Girl Scouts' highest honor. Recognizing and commending Vanny Aurora on the Girl Scouts Gold Award, Girl Scouts' highest honor. Recognizing and commending Summer Chen on the Girl Scouts Gold Award, Girl Scouts' highest honor. Recognizing and commending Brianna Upton on the Girl Scouts Gold Award and Girl Scouts Highest Honor. Congratulating and commending Crystal Kendall for receiving the 2020 Yellow Rose Nikki T. Randall Servant Leader Award. Commending Georgia's 8 food banks and recognizing March 5th, 2020 as Georgia Food Bank Day at the state capitol. Recognizing and commending Coney County's Teacher of the Year. Recognizing February 9 through 15, 2020 as Georgia Court Reporting and Captioning Week at the state capitol. Recognizing and commending the Honorable Samuel Vernerio. Recognizing and commending Rugby Atlanta for its inaugural season and contributions to the state of Georgia. Recognizing April 24th, 2020 as Meningococcal Bee Awareness Day at the state capitol. And for other purposes, that completes the reading of the privileged resolutions.
Is there any objection to adopting the privilege resolutions? The chair hears none, and the resolutions are adopted. All right, we're going on to announcements. We are going on to announcements. If there have been changes in any of your committee meetings this afternoon as a result of the Charlie Smith Memorial, then you might want to sign up for an announcement if you haven't already. Chair recognizes Chairman Hitchens for an announcement.
The Public Safety and Homeland Security Committee will meet today at 1 p.m. in CLOB 606.
Chair recognizes Representative LaRicchia for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Georgia Pest Control Association will have lunch from Sprayberry's Barbecue immediately upon adjournment down in room 123. Would love to have you for lunch. Thank y'all so much.
Chair recognizes Chairman Corbett for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Motor Vehicles Committee will meet at 8 o'clock in the morning, room 515 CLOB. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Beverly for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Georgia House Democratic Caucus will meet immediately upon adjournment. Lunch will be served. We have an important measure to take up, so please get to room 216 immediately upon adjournment. Thanks, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes the Chairman Newton for an announcement.
Almost. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the Committee on
Access to Quality Healthcare. Access to Quality Healthcare Committee. We're meeting at 1 o'clock. We've moved up from 2. We're going to start at 1 o'clock. We may have a slightly limited agenda to allow time for everyone to participate in everything this afternoon. So 1 o'clock, 3:41. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Chairman Welch for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Welch Subcommittee for Judiciary, that meeting is canceled today. I'll reschedule that later. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Tanner for an announcement.
If you are in the ATL District 2, remember there's a vote today in room 406, CLOB upon adjournment for both the House and the Senate. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Wilkerson for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Cobb Legislative Delegation will meet at noon in CLOB 605. We have a couple of reappointments to the Water Authority we need to make, so please be there. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the Chairman of the House Rules Committee, Chairman Smith, for an announcement.
Rules Committee will meet tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock tomorrow morning.
That completes our announcements. Chair recognizes the Majority Leader of the House for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move that this House stand adjourned until 10 a.m. Tuesday, February the 25th, 2020.
The Majority Leader has moved that this House be adjourned until Tuesday, February 25th at 10 a.m. All those in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes clearly have it. This House will be adjourned until Tuesday at 10 a.m.